Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tap Tempo. It's been a while, it's been a few years, and what better time to relaunch it than now, thanks to the wonderful technology that we now have that allows these things to be seamless. So, we're back, and my first guest is Jake Bowen. He is one of the guitarists of Periphery. He also just released his second solo record called The Daily Sun, and I had the pleasure of actually mixing that record. But Jake's a super close friend, and it's so fitting to be able to have him as the first guest on the new season of Tap Tempo. Also, I just announced my new album, Dichotomy, is coming out later this spring. The debut single is called Ordinary Love, that features Denise Reno, and that just came out this past Friday. So go give that a listen. And without any further ado, it's my pleasure to reintroduce Tap Tempo to you with Jake Bowen. Hey folks, Tap Tempo is back in action, and I have Jake Bowen sitting with me right here. Jake is one of the guitarists in the Grammy-nominated progressive metal band Periphery, and he also just released his second solo album called The Daily Sun, which is on their own record label, Three Dots Recording. So, hello, how are you?
I'm great. How you doing, Matt?
You know, it's starting to get cold here in LA, which is weird, and the darkness at 4 p.m. is just killing me.
Dude, that's the worst part. The temperature, I don't mind putting on a nice coat, put my boots on, but the temperature, I'm in Jersey, so it's, it's a lot colder here. But you forgot to mention, you also worked on this record.
I did. It is your record at the end of the day. I was privileged to, of course, work on it and mix it and also collaborate with you on a song called Mirage. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I've been a part of this record since, I guess beginning or middle of this past year? Something like that?
Pretty early on, I think I asked you. I don't think I was done with it yet.
Yeah, I don't think so
Nor
either.
done writing it. And I remember I moved into this new place, and I was, mixing, at my normal mixing volume, which I don't think is bad.
Right.
It's not loud, but I do. We have the same monitors. We have the Event Opals.
The Opals, that's right. Yep.
And they have a pretty crushing low end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was what was driving my neighbor nuts. So I remember thinking, man, I moved into this new place. I got my new studio set up. I'm really, really happy here. And now I can't mix my record. And then I was like, wait a minute. Matt mixes records, and he's really, really good at it. Why don't I just ask him? So that's how that idea came to me.
How long ago did The Daily Sun start?
That started in December, officially started. I've been trying to do a follow-up for the last 6 years, and I remember I was like, you know what? I'm going to put out an album every year. And my debut came out in 2015, and after that, I just I don't know what was wrong with me. I kind of it was part of it was I lacked the will. Part of it was, well, I did that sound. Now I need to do something different. How do I do that? And I remember, I've collected a bunch of demos, but in December, I had gotten in touch with you. I think I sent you a picture of one of your patches because I had bought
Generate.
Black Hole or Generator, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the Eventide family of things, and you were like, "Oh, I know those guys. Let me put you in touch." And then they sent me some software to use, and then all of a sudden, the first track on the album came out of it, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And it was probably. At least for me, I don't like talking about my music, saying that it's good, but at least for me, I felt like this was the best thing I've done. And I was just like, oh man, now I've started. And it was because you facilitated that relationship with Eventide. And
Have you told them that?
I don't know. Maybe
you
in
should.
An email I did.
They, I'm sure Christian or whoever it was that sent you some plugins would be very, very happy to know.
Yeah, it just gave me so many inspiring tools, and I kind of went overboard with some things, but I learned how to dial it back. I also got feedback from you on the track that I did, and I just kind of tried to do my own thing, but also try to learn some new stuff on the way. And that's how that got started. That was just like last December.
That's right. Yeah, actually, I remember listening to some of those early tracks. Actually, I was driving up over the hills over here in Mount Washington, and it was like sunset time. And a lot of your stuff is very. I mean, you have this nice ambience, pretty much in all of it, which also makes sense why you liked the Eventide reverb so much, because they excel at ambience. But yeah, you always have these nice, like, pretty soundscapes underneath, electronic beats. So I was listening to it just driving along the hills during sunset, and it was a very pleasant experience. So. Thank you for scoring my drive.
Yeah,
no pun
dude.
intended.
Yeah, that's that's kind of my aim. I think like especially being like a metal musician, the aim is kind of to write this very bombastic or excitable music, but I kind of want my music to kind of walk that line of you could put it on in the background and ignore the hell out of it, but it's like that movement that's going on in the background, or you could pay attention to it and maybe there's some interesting things that you'll find there. But the sort of background ambience, or at least that style, is very deliberate.
And it's something, I mean, I've noticed too. I mean, even it's not to say your electronic music is simplistic at all, because there are definitely moments where you have some, kind of like hyper edity, glitchy things. I mean, maybe it's because, I of course have a background in rock and metal to a different degree too. So I definitely think there's a translation between technique that kind of traverses both genres, where so much of metal and guitar music in general is really, there's a lot of emphasis on not necessarily virtuosity, but certainly technique. And a lot of electronic music doesn't go there, because also the backgrounds of a lot of people making electronic music are vastly different than you. And I mean, you came up, shredding guitar. There are a few electronic music producers who I can think of, like Josh Eustace of Telephone. I mean, he has a background in guitar like that too, and obviously, we're both huge fans of him. But
yeah,
I would
definitely
say, the majority of electronic musicians, it's changing a bit now, obviously with just the advent of technology making everything so accessible. But so many of them, they really come from more of a like a rave or a DJ background, which is ultimately going to lend itself to a different kind of production style and a different kind of writing style.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with like at least with what I bring to whatever scene I'm a part of. I don't even know yet, but you can definitely hear the kind of like there's like a motion to some of the passages that is very reminiscent of metal, especially like Periphery stuff. It's funny because like that there's like one section in that song we were just talking about, the first track. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, it's like this very like panned, glitchy, kind of like chopped up waveform editing style. And when I showed that to Misha, he was like, this is one of those Jake Bowen gent riffs. He calls like all those sections like genty, because that's kind of the same way that we would compose sections that are kind of all over the place in Periphery. Like, we have, and I guess that's probably where I get it from, but I'm just using different instruments as textures rather than like, guitar and bass and drums.
And it's funny. I mean, I've been in the room when you guys are writing before, and it's fascinating, especially now because you're all so collaborative at this point where it's literally like people.
You helped us on our last session. It was awesome.
Barely. I was there. That's about it. But I mean, the magic is obviously, your band is amazing. So that's a different thing. But I've noticed, especially with like when you're doing the genty riffs, for instance, and let's say like the metal genty riffs, when you're passing that back and forth, do you ever find yourself actually like making edits that actually influence then the writing, or are you writing with edits, or is it always more organic?
I look at it as like, it could be both things, actually. Yeah. It usually starts out as like let's say like a low resolution version of that riff. Right. And it evolves as we take a step back from it. Like we'll write a section and then we'll listen to it back, and there'll just be something about it that's just not quite there yet. And because we don't speak in music theory terms to each other, at least we all have ears. I'd say Misha probably has like probably the better understanding of like theoretical stuff, but we'll like take a step back and we'll be like, it's missing something. It needs like, it needs something to change it up. And usually we look at it in accents. Usually 16th note accents is like what the big thing in Periphery is.
Right.
So, we'll take it like a 16th note at a time and kind of build things from there. We have this kind of like vocabulary of moves on the guitar that we can use to springboard or start ideas, and we kind of mix and match those until we kind of get a framework, and then we can really work on the minutia. And a lot of it is, I'd say we used to do like a more editing style of writing. Now it's because we've been doing it for so long. Now we just try to like one take it. Like kind of create the phrase on the spot or the riff or whatever. And so that way it sounds a little bit more organic, more natural, because there are a lot of bands out there that are just like editing geniuses, and you can just tell like the whole album's punched in. And we kind of wanted to get away from that because we enjoy the act of playing live. Why don't we make this stuff a little bit better feeling to play live?
It feels like a natural progression too. I mean, because you guys really were one of the first bands to really be self-producing and then doing all the hyper editing, at least within modern metal. I mean, you guys were, as far as I can think of, you were one of the first ones to be really doing like home studio metal records.
Yeah, at least in this kind of like, I don't even know what to call it. I mean, it's gent now, but we didn't know what that was back then. So
I always just called it progressive metal.
Yeah, that's kind of the, when I got into this, and people would ask, well, what kind of metal do you play? Oh, progressive metal. That's right. What you went to. It was interesting because I'd say that, this kind of style, everybody will credit Meshuggah, and rightfully so, because they definitely are the, I'd say they're the genesis of, exactly, the beginning of the sound. And then they had a forum on the internet, and then that's where all of these really, really talented people, including Misha, would congregate, and they'd share their demos on there. And some of those guys are still going today with great careers, and it's pretty amazing that it came from that, and that the home recording scene. You really got to give credit to Tune Track as well, because they with Drum Kit from Hell, you could have a great sounding drum kit on your computer, and with Line 6 and their
Line 6, I mean, that's the big one I think always is the advent of the pod.
Yeah, and like the pod was probably easier to get than Drum Kit from Hell, because everywhere had Line 6 gear. So Drum Kit from Hell took an audio interface. It took a decent, more than decent computer to run properly. But you could go to the store and start writing djenty riffs for $180 or whatever that bean shaped pod was.
The old red pod, the kidney bean.
I love that thing, the XT. Even the 2.0 I thought sounded good.
I never had a pod. I had the Behringer knockoff. Called,
the V-amp?
The V-amp, yeah. I still have it. It lives in a closet over there, and it's actually, it's funny. So I was, some years ago, so one of my favorite, everyone knows my favorite bass sound is like a drum bass Reese. And one of my favorite ones ever was made by Calix from Calix and TB, but Larry's first record called No Turning Back, he had this song on it called Illusions, which had the most like gnarly sounding drum bass Reese. And I was backstage with him at a show, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. And if I was like, dude, you got to tell me, how did you do that? And he said he just took 2 super saws, I don't know, it didn't even matter what synth it was, and ran it through a pod and then just turned the mid knob. And it was so full circle, because suddenly, of course, like as a guitarist, and he's a guitarist too. But it was so funny to hear that in electronic music. Suddenly, it was the hearing the techniques that we would use in a different form of music to recreate. And I guess it's not surprising then that's one of my favorite sounds, because it does carry that kind of. There's a texture you get with guitar amps that you don't get with other forms of distortion.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's just such a good point about like running synths through typical guitar gear, because like you can't see it because it's down here, but I have this pedal drawer that is running through an Axe-Fx 3, and I have a complete separate loop setup for any hardware synths that I plug into it. So then you know you just kind of you blow open this door of just like custom synth sounds, and you know, like I run it through, you know, overdrive, I have delays, I have reverbs and all this stuff, and you can get really knob tweaky, and
it's there's a tangible side to it. I mean, yes, you can run a delay plugin, or even in the Axe-Fx you can put up a delay block or reverb block or whatever. It's always there's something special about going through hardware before it. And
custom, because it's like you can go down the rabbit hole of like just there's so many great presets out there.
Totally.
But I kind of learned that you can infuse more soul into your stuff if you're really like custom with your sounds. And you're really like, you find the one that makes you go, yeah, that's the one. And I feel like when you're running your synths through things that, aren't necessarily meant for synths, you can stumble upon that.
Do you have a favorite chain that you do for like your favorite inspiration chain?
As far as hardware goes, no. I just kind of, I experiment, but whenever I start playing with like a new synth sound, it's usually a software synth, and then the first thing I stick on it is a black hole, Eventide black hole, and because like I can at least kind of lay my foundation out with that, and it's just the perfect plugin. It's pretty much on every. I think it's on every Periphery song since it came out, and like,
really?
It's like it's on every one of my like newer electronic songs. So it's just such a staple. I
mean, it's been on every track I've done for the last 12 years, probably. And even like looking around, like in hardware, I have 4 different versions of it in hardware. And then, fun fact, I had the first Audio Suite Pro Tools version of Black Hole.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Because I was using it so much, but for whatever reason, they didn't have an Audio Suite version yet. And Dan Gillespie, who of course from Newfangled Audio, he was still at Eventide back then. He sent me a beta version to work in Audio Suite, and I mean that's such a huge part of my workflow in general. Is just printing things through a ridiculous black hole reverb and reversing them, or doing whatever.
I did this thing. It was kind of an accident, but in the first song on my album, The Daily Sun, there's this arpeggio kind of going throughout the whole song, and I accidentally turned the mix knob on it all the way up. So it kind of created this weird like fluttering sort of texture. And then I was like, whoa, that sounds cool. I can make an interlude out of that. So I just bounced that down, and then that was the foundation for this interlude towards the end of the album. And it's just like, now I know to do weird things like that. Just like, throw a knob in a direction and see if you can kind of create pads or texture, soundscapey stuff. It's just such a versatile plugin. I love it.
It's funny. Something I started doing somewhat recently, certainly within the last year, and it's totally something you wouldn't think you're supposed to do at all. And that would be I would do it typically in the pedal world because it was just more fun and more extreme, but putting a reverb before a fuzz. And then the reverb didn't have to be totally wet. It could be 50%, even more. I mean, it's actually kind of better, but then you just blow it out with, say, like a Big Muff style fuzz. And just the texture you would get as it's fuzzing the reverb, and like every time I would do it with drums, for instance, a lot, because there would just be so much space in between each transient hit. And then you'd start fuzzing up like the space in between the drum hits while there's also this reverb wash that's feeding into the fuzz.
It's like a nice saturation. Is that what you're going for?
It's just destruction. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does saturate, but it's much different than just saying running a drum loop or anything through a fuzz, or even with like melodic material of taking a synth, because then what happens is as you get notes that are, you know, kind of closer to each other, you get that intermodulation, especially when, you know, there's a reverb trail that's, you know, really blending those two notes together. And then you have the distortion after that kind of fighting it. So you get these really weird pulses. And
I think I remember you giving me that as like one of your tools. Like I was asking you, like, you know, what do you use reverb for? And I think because I wrote down, like, I copied some of our texts and I put them in notepads so that way I, like, when you give me tips, like I can like go and reference them. And I think that was one of them. I have to go back and look.
Oh, it's like the Matt Lange cheat sheet.
Oh, dude, there's some great stuff you got.
Well, I'm flattered. But so when you, I'm trying to think about the best. So basically, I mean, when you guys were doing, let's go way back, because Periphery 1, there was a lot of electronic interlude stuff on that.
Yeah.
And I think you were responsible for all that stuff, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, aside from Meshuggah, of course, you know, what were you finding influence from, especially in the context of adding the electronic interludes?
I mean, at the time, I was probably just listening to like Telephone Tel Aviv.
Sure.
Like that. I mean, that's, you know, I think at the beginning, I just wanted to like understand that style of music, and we didn't know each other yet, and like I didn't know anything really beyond that. It was kind of before Spotify, and
Totally.
you know, Pandora was a thing, so you know, I would listen to like Prefuse 73 and Hudson Mohawk, and kind of like I'd grab inspiration from there too, but I just had no education and I wasn't in that scene, so I was completely isolated musically in that sense. So, you know, you're hearing kind of like a very raw understanding of electronic music. Like everything is very, you know, the sound design is very one-dimensional. I don't even think I like had anything on my master bus at the time. I think when I mixed down the stems to give to Misha, they went through his master bus. So then they kind of like, we had to like mix them differently. It was just a very like kind of weird experience. And then to top it all off, I didn't know what the track order would be until like the very last minute. So in parallel working on the album, I did work on that album a little bit. Misha wrote most of the songs, but I was also helping. I helped with various things, but we also wrote the last song together. So while we were kind of getting this album together, I was just writing all of this stuff. And eventually when I had the track order and I had the unmastered version, I finally was able to see how it went together. And I took what I had written and I just was seeing where it could fit. So it was a very imperfect process, and it's kind of, it's not a regret. It was just kind of how it worked. And
It sounds like you were making your first record.
Yeah, that too. That too. And it just, you know, I think if you listen to the Periphery records, you can see like that happened again on Periphery 2, by the way, where I didn't really know what the tracks were going to be. I just had to kind of, we would create these preliminary track lists so then I could see where things might fit and then try to guesstimate the right key changes and stuff. And then eventually after Periphery 2, we did Juggernaut, and I was kind of like, all right, you know, I think we should all work on these together. Yeah. And then the interlude thing became a band thing. And, you know, the electronic stuff kind of not disappeared entirely. There are electronic tracks, but they're not like, you know, me kind of working separate from the band and then us assimilating that material. But I will note that on the stuff we're working on now, there actually is like a very electronic song that I don't know if it's going to make the cut yet. But me and Misha worked on it one night, and then we sat on it for a while, and then in the next session, we were like, Spencer, we really like this track. Can you like help us make it cool? And so we sat down with it, and we kind of, took the hacksaw to it with Spencer's help. So, so there's going to be kind of like, it will be coming full circle on that stuff, because I don't think we've had like a couple little like electronic style things, but not really like the style that I'm used to doing.
Yeah, 'cause on P4 it was a very electronic track.
Crush, yeah.
Crush,
yeah.
I mean, that was almost like a Bring Me the Horizon style, like electronica rock. Did you?
That one?
Interestingly enough, how did you find the reaction of that? Because it is so drastically different to, say, a song like Scarlet.
The people's reaction to our stuff, like, I kind of like it when a song pisses them off, or if they don't like it that much, because then it means that, like, yeah, you're gonna get this. You're gonna get the things that we like to do. We're not gonna just like toe the line of making sure that every song is gonna be like this, gent metal sort of thing. Like, I want to be able to do weird stuff. Like what
and you
Church
have to grow
Burner
too.
Yeah. The song Church Burner is like so wild for us, and that, I love playing that one live, and it doesn't sound like Periphery. And I like to, that was always kind of, that's one of the big reasons I joined the band, is that, Misha was just so experimental, and I wanted to work with somebody who wanted to experiment and try to, do a lot of different styles. So that's really important for me, and I think it's important for the band too.
And I mean, it's not surprising either. I mean, because all of you guys really like electronic music.
Yeah. I think most of us probably listen to electronic music more than we listen to any other style of music.
It's such a funny irony to me, because I'm on the other side of that same coin, where I'm known for obviously doing a lot more electronic music, and what I listen to is mostly rock and metal. So
we've talked about that in the past, where it's interesting how, I want to find out more about what you do, and I think you're fascinated by the rock and metal world too, and I think that's one of the basis of our friendship, is that there's this mutual respect and this mutual love for each other's music. So I really enjoy that. I think that's cool.
It's so cool, because also, I mean, from like as a teenager, like you get that issue of, Guitar World. You're 15 years old, and you're just, you're in your nascent stage of learning how to play the guitar, give or take. And assuming you're not some like 4-year-old prodigy who
just good right out of the womb.
Good out of the womb. Yeah. That's a good line. But I remember, like, always, it would always be like, I would see, it would be like Zakk Wylde, or, somebody on the cover with his, bullseye Les Paul. And it's so cool to me now that I get to see you now, on those covers, and like you have the signature guitars, and it's like, it's such a cool moment for me to, because like when I was growing up, like these people, the people on the cover, they were my heroes. And now to watch my friends take that role, it's got to be completely surreal for you. But it's just, it makes me very proud. But I mean, you were already doing that before I knew you guys. So you were killing it.
Yeah, it's sort of a weird thing, because it's kind of like this, picking up the mantle sort of deal, like those guys, the Zakk Wylde's around still killing it, but like the thing is like, as time moves on, new people get let in, and I think that we were one of the groups that got let in, and we definitely I think we made it a point to, I don't want to use the word capitalize, because I think it's kind of cold, because that's not really what it was. It was more like, we have a fan base of musicians. Let's give them tools that like we would use, so they can be inspired too. And I that, at least that's my kind of approach with it. When I for example, when I did the first signature guitar with Ibanez, I was very insistent. I was like, look, this has to be the guitar that I play live. This can't be like the discount version of it. I do have
Right.
more affordable models out now, but those are also scrutinized the same way, and I play those live as well. So, that was always the thing is like, you know what, if you're going to listen to Periphery, you're going to get quality, and you're going to if you're going to get Periphery related gear, we want it to be quality. It's like as a kid, like you say, when you're like flipping through the guitar buyer's guide or Guitar World or whatever, you envision what it would be like to be in that position. And you say to yourself, I care about quality, because all of this stuff is quality. Like, the John Petrucci signature is quality. And, I think that's like a reason why that, just to use that as an example, why that's one of the most popular signature guitars of all time is because it's a sick guitar.
I just, it's funny because I remember, so speaking of John, I remember I went to National Guitar Workshop when I was like 15, which is like summer camp, like band camp basically, but no flutes. And and I remember, the first time I ever played, it was his first signature, and like some other kid had it. And first of all, it was also, I think, one of the nicest guitars I had ever played because they were not cheap when they first came out. I think they were around like 2,500 or something like that.
Yeah, they were very, very expensive. They're still expensive.
Yeah, now they have the they have the scaled down versions too, which are sub $1,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which makes, and I was thinking about that too when you were talking about your guitar. Of course, like now you have a simplified version too, because when you're a kid, you can't afford a $3,000 guitar.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless you're like crazy like me and go upstate New York and paint houses all summer. But yeah, no, you're right. It's like, if a kid says, mommy or daddy, I want a guitar, they're not reaching for a $3,000 guitar.
No. You're like, if you're lucky, here's something that costs $500 at Guitar Center.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. I mean, my first guitar was a Japanese Strat knockoff called an Aria Pro 2. And it was just...
You still have it?
Yeah, it's at my parents' place in New York.
That's great.
Yeah, I never get rid of anything.
You got to record something with it.
I should. I think the last time I picked it up, I mean, the action was so high, the strings were 20 years old. I mean, it was painful, but I kind of feel like I should bring it back at some point. Just, it'll be fun.
Play around with it. Take the old, if the action's so high, it's good for the old the
Bowen.
The Bowen, yeah.
Yeah, Jake Bowen. But surely someone has said that to you before.
Dude, if you can think it, it's been said to me.
True. What's the weirdest thing anyone's ever said to you on the road from someone you didn't know?
Oh my God, dude. I had a guy come up to me like just like incredibly sweaty and nervous.
Yeah.
And he was like trying to tell me that he was related to me. And I never met this person before, and he was like trying to like name family members that I never heard of, and it was a little scary.
Yeah, he got put on the no-fly list after that.
Yeah, it's like, I remember like leaving. I found a way to leave the conversation, and I was just like, ooh, is this one of those like guys that like has a diary filled with, magazine cutouts and, how we stole his thoughts and, that's it. We're going to be, attacked on stage or something. That's like, that's, I guess that's, weird and scary.
Yeah, I had one of those once too. I got this string of Facebook messages from, some guy that just got increasingly more and more unstable, and suddenly he started talking about guns and suicide and all sorts of really just like stressful and horrifying things. So and and I was doing a show in Austin that night. So yeah, we like printed out a picture of the guy, and security had it. And unfortunately,
yeah, we've had to do that before. It's so scary.
yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. And especially, I mean, not to make it too political, but with, I mean, the amount of shootings and things like that that are happening, you know, regularly now in America, it's something I think about that,
Dude, I went to go see Dune the other day, and like maybe like, you know, 30, 40 minutes into the movie, I was thinking about, I'm like, yo, like, I forgot mass shootings happen here. It's terrifying. And then I think about, like, you know, being on stage with Periphery, where we're basically inviting
yeah,
a lot of people of, you know, all sorts to come watch us perform, and it's just like you don't know who's going to be there, and it's just terrifying. Like it's just such a, you know, and you can't put your life on hold for that. So you know,
there's
you got to keep going.
Yeah,
You know, and it's just like you're kind of just, you know, you're rolling dice, and
I mean, unfortunately, you know, 999 times out of 1,000, there's no issue.
right, yeah, it's just like you wonder if you're gonna win that, you know, grim lottery, and I hate the way that makes me feel.
I mean, it's a real fear,
Yeah,
and especially more now than ever. I mean, but then you have the flip side of it too, and then you have events like the whole Travis Scott, you know, tragedy.
yeah,
And that's
entirely preventable.
Entirely. I mean, it's entirely preventable, but I have such mixed feelings about it, because the crowd, he allowed it to happen, and he enticed the crowd, and I think he's totally responsible for it. There's no doubt about that. But you look at bigger issues too, where for a lot of people, this is probably their first, you know, festival, real live experience in 2 years, give or take. And there are 50,000 people
That's a
there.
really good point. I didn't think about that. I didn't, like, I just thought about, okay, there was a lapse in security, that the production's probably reeling, like, but no, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, there was definitely a lapse in security, no doubt about that.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying like that wasn't part of the thing, but I really, the point you just made really resonated with me, that, you know, people haven't been to a show in 2 years, and some people, this is going to be their first show ever, or they, you know, they don't know what to expect. They don't know how to conduct themselves, or that makes a lot of sense.
They're ready to blow off hardcore steam.
Yeah.
And then, so, I mean, it's really like perfect chemistry for this atrocity, because you have a lot of people in this crowd who are just ready to go apeshit. And then you have a performer who has a long history of riling up a crowd and essentially like creating riots and like criminal disturbances or misdemeanor, whatever. I forget his, you know, he has legal problems for inciting crowd riots. So you mix that in with this festival where it's, you know, totally, they're unprepared for this. And I mean, it's awful, but it's like a powder keg ready to explode.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. It's a powder keg. And I didn't realize that he had prior sort of issues with, you know, riling up the crowd. So that's interesting. I wonder, they're definitely taking a look at that, I'm sure.
I'm sure. I mean, it's going to be, last I checked, there's a $740 million lawsuit. But I mean, it's going to be bigger. I mean, once more and more people come out of the woodwork, I mean, it's just, there's going to be hell to pay, because, I mean, a 9-year-old kid died.
Yeah, I mean, it's unacceptable no matter which, you know, who's responsible. It's like that can never happen again. So,
do you ever find you get 9-year-olds at your shows?
Yeah. Lots of, you know, that, let me just say, that's one of the things I love most about being in this band, is that the fan base is very diverse.
Yeah.
The age range is very diverse. I've had guys in their 60s and 70s come up to me at shows and be like, "Hey, I love your music. You know, it reminds me of this stuff I used to listen to." And, you know, I've also had like parents bring their kids up, their little kids, and I'm like, oh man, is this the right place for that, you know, 7-year-old, 8-year-old?
Right.
But it's like, I think it's really cool that, you know, I didn't start going to concerts until I was a bit older. I think I went to my first concert when I was 16. But
Oh wow.
you know, had I gone to no, actually, it was a bit younger than that. But I always forget. Think it was 13. Not that it matters. But you know, the kids that I've seen come to the show, you know, they can be as young as like 8 if it's an all ages show, and you know, we used to do these VIP things. We don't really do them anymore, and you know, definitely not with the pandemic. But I remember, you know, some parents would buy the VIP package for them and their family, and you know, we'd meet these little kids getting into heavy metal, and I always used to think that was so cool. Like,
That must have, blown them away.
yeah, because like I remember, you know, seeing my first show and just being like, this is the greatest thing that I have ever seen. And then I think if I was even younger, there'd be even more magic to it, because you know, you perceive the world so much differently.
Oh, I mean, it's all magical. There is no concept of, your favorite artist actually being a human being.
Yeah, it's like you're a character, or like you're a part of this this larger than life thing. You know, that kind of that brings up another topic. I guess it's more of like a question for you. When you go to a show now, like, does it feel different than when you were a kid? And because you like know the inner workings, you know what's going on backstage, you know that, it's it's like clockwork, how everything works back there. You know what, how they're setting things up. It kind of takes the mystery and fun out of it. At least for me, I was wondering if that happens to you too.
It can, and a lot of the times it does. It really depends on the show. If I go to a club thing, yeah, of course. I mean, that feels like work, even if I go recreationally. But if I go see live music, that's where I get excited. Even a few months ago, I was in Nashville and I went to a bluegrass night. And I mean, I had never been in a crowd like that before. I mean, everyone was white and kind of large and, very pro-Trump, so to speak. But just sitting there at this table and watching these musicians who were just astonishingly good, and they were,
that like, bluegrass style is just,
oh my God.
You always get these monsters.
And I mean, I love, like, I've never been big into country, but I guess I've learned I really like a lot more Americana, and I like some bluegrass. And I love the sound of a pedal steel. Like, oh my God, do I love the sound of a pedal steel. But so this is like, but it's basically no production value. It's a like a local cafe, like a cafe club in Nashville. And watching these players play that was magical to me. And same thing, the last time I went to, I mean, this is a couple of years ago, but the last time I went to a show that truly blew me away, and this was a bigger show. This was at the Shrine here in LA, which does like 5,000 or 6,000 people. And I mean, I went totally GA, and just, bought my ticket, sat in my seat, and I saw Ben Howard. And he's just an absolutely incredible British singer-songwriter. And the production value was just, I was blown away again. He had about 12 different people on stage, everyone doing different instruments. And he was, of course, in the center with like his guitars and, like a small pedal rig and like a little synth or whatever. But just the experience was amazing. The lighting was incredible. The musicianship was, of course, incredible. And I felt in that moment, I didn't feel like I was in the music industry or I was going and like, knowing all the workings behind the scenes. In that moment, I got to sit there and I was a fan. And that is, I mean, that was amazing. Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm glad, because like it still happens for me.
Yeah.
I guess it's just because I tend to go to more metal shows than anything else. Yeah. I've seen every type of metal show, but you're right, like especially when you're kind of immersing yourself in a scene that you're not too familiar with, or it's kind of you don't really know anybody in that scene, so this is kind of like your first time experiencing that. I know what you mean. It kind of, you can kind of recapture that sort of original magic, so to speak, of going to shows.
It's so easy when you go see your friends play. That's a different experience. And you don't, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, say I go see you guys play. Like, yeah, obviously I love your band, but I'm going to hang out with you more than I am to see you play live.
Yeah, you've seen us play enough. We just want to drink whiskey and talk shit.
Yeah, like I like to go and I'll stand backstage and watch you guys kill it in front of 3,000 people who are screaming their heads off. And that to me is so exciting because I'm like I get to blush with pride, like these are my friends kicking ass. but that's a very different experience than the kid who is pushed up right against the barrier, just like killing himself to watch you guys play. And that's an experience that I don't fortunately frankly I don't think I ever want to be that person again. I was like that when I was 18, but
yeah, it's dangerous down there.
Yeah, I had my days of like mosh pits, and when I was 16, there was this punk rock club in New York called ABC No Rio, and it was basically it was a squat actually. And like my first band would play there too, and it would always be like 50 people at most. And if it was raining, the rain would be like coming down from the rafters, and it was still to this day.
That sounds pretty punk rock.
Oh, it was super punk rock, and it was like a $5 or $6 matinee every Saturday at 4. And still, this is actually like probably some of my favorite shows I've ever played because it was just like the sheer exhilaration, and it was really aggressive music. So that was like a different. I'd end up like covering like the pickups of my guitar in blood from like scraping my knuckles and, the whole thing. And the singer would be like a whirling dervish with a mic cable screaming his head off. So you might get kicked and, all the things would happen on stage or not. It wasn't even stage, just on the floor. And then, people would be standing right in front of you. But I think after going through that and then going to see bands like Dillinger Escape Plan and Converge, basically when I was in high school and then in college. By the time I got to, I think, my senior year in college, I was like, I'm going to stand in the back and watch. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, bringing up Dillinger, that's a good example of a band where when you see them your first couple of times, you're like, I'm going right up front and I hope I get kicked in the face. Like you want to be a part of the danger.
Yeah.
And say that you survived it. Mm-hmm. Not literally, but at least that's what I was thinking. I was just like, I'm going to the show because it's dangerous.
They should have had a shirt that said like, I survived Dillinger or something
like
that.
Yeah, I mean, dude, yeah. And it's, obviously they grew beyond that. Yeah. But I remember those early days of seeing them in clubs where, it was the crowd and then the band. They were right next to each other on the same level. And that's like a different kind of magic.
Yeah.
It's like it's all energy and no production. Mm-hmm. Or the production is the energy.
Right. It's so raw.
Yeah, it's raw and it's dangerous and it's like, it's kind of you're all feeding off of each other. Equal parts, band and crowd, and that's that's hard to replicate too. And I also, at 38 years old, I don't know if I'd go to a show like that anymore unless I could stand in the back.
Right.
So, there is a youth oriented nature to it. But dude, I could talk about this stuff all day long.
Yeah, I mean, I romanticize it in my head because now I could never do now what I did when I was 17.
Yeah, same.
I just physically don't think I could take it. And to be honest, I don't have any interest in doing it anymore. But if you're 17, you should do it. Like, now's your time.
It's sexy back then, and now it's kind of like, I'm too old for this, or like I might have outgrown this, or it just doesn't seem safe.
Yeah, right. I mean, you think about your mortality a lot more now. But it's different too. I mean, because also what kids listen to now for the most part, and I say that kids loosely. I mean, I think a lot of it is a lot more electronic now in general. You have, I mean, the advent of Skrillex, I think, is
I was going to say dubstep.
Like, yeah, I mean, when that happened, that basically became, it looked like it became heavy metal.
it sounds like heavy metal.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's just these really bombastic, loud songs. It reminded me of like, this is, I think people like this because this is the way that heavy metal made me feel.
Right.
So,
Like just aggression and empowered.
that grindy bass, you know,
Yeah.
takes the place of a guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting phenomenon. And I still think, because of course now, when we were in our teenage years, we didn't have the capability to like really like make electronic music like that.
No.
I mean, I think that's a sign of technology. So for us, it was, I mean, with the exception, of course, like, you know, Nine Inch Nails was around when we were kids, but that was also like magic, because in order to do that back then,
that guy's a freak. I mean, Trent's a freak. Like, you know, you only get one of those, you know, once a lifetime. You know?
And on top of it, the kind of things he was doing was impossible to recreate as a kid in your bedroom.
Yeah. I correct me if I'm wrong. You may know more about the history of that group. But didn't he like work in a studio as kind of a janitor or just somebody
like
helping out, and he was able to kind of utilize the equipment in the off hours or whatever. Like that's so cool. Like that, you know, that's like, that sounds like it's almost like a heavy metal or punk rock fairy tale, you know, where it's like
the janitor becomes the king.
Yeah. It's just, it's a really cool story. And I always, you know, that Trent Reznor is one of those guys that I'm just like, man, that's how you fucking do it. That's how, you know, this is how electronic music should sound. Or, you know, even though it was like industrial or whatever you want to call it, it's just such a cool thing, a cool sound. And, you know, he was able to kind of like do it on his own.
I mean, I look at his career path as so inspirational too. And just moving from the band thing into, you know, their first score, they got the Oscar for The Social Network, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And still one of my favorite scores, to be honest. Like him and Atticus are two of my favorite composers, which I guess isn't shocking because I love Nails, but it's such a nice way to age gracefully.
Yeah, dude. As those words were leaving your mouth, it like popped into my head too. I'm like, you know, that's, you know, because you can like keep doing the same thing over and over again. It will be fine. People will still show up as long as you're like not totally phoning it in.
Right.
But like he found a way to kind of evolve his talent and partnered up with somebody else who is immensely talented and like kind of like made this new thing.
Yeah.
And you know, I gotta hats off to that, because, you know, I want to do Periphery as long as I can, but I also don't. Is that a cattail?
That's a cattail.
That's cute. But I also don't want to like look silly or sound silly or like just look like I need to move on, but I can't like stop living in the past or reliving glory days or whatever. And, you know, I think that's, you know, something that Trent has done a really good job at doing with, you know, his new endeavor and with Nine Inch Nails. I'm sure Nine Inch Nails will come back, you know, for a show too.
They do.
Yeah.
They were going to go on tour and then cancel their dates because of COVID.
Yeah.
So, okay, this
but like dialing
situation
it back and kind of focusing on the, you know, this other thing, it's just, it's very graceful.
I mean, for people who don't know, Jake's uncle is John Petrucci of Dream Theater. And I mean, here's an example where, I mean, directly in your family, I mean, he's in his 50s now. Yeah. And
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's actually a great example because they're still going. Dream Theater is as big as they've ever been. And
that's such a interesting example because like, I think like when it comes to all of their musicianship, everybody on their own can write an amazing album just on their own. They wouldn't need the help of the band. They could just, you know, put out amazing music on their own. And like if you told them what to play, if like you verbalized something. It could be even like just like gibberish. They would be able to compose this. They're like on this level of musicianship where it's just like anything is in reach for them.
Right.
So, you know, I think that they can go as long as they want doing what they're doing, just because I don't think the well will ever dry up for them, you know? And I'm envious of that kind of musical talent. It's like the thing that scares me the most is like just kind of not having anything to say musically anymore.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
I hope not. At least I hope not at 38.
I don't think it can. Because at your core, you're a musician no matter what. And ultimately, like I was thinking about this when you were talking about like the dream one day of like, oh, I'm going to do an album every year. And I think that's completely unsustainable because you haven't lived enough between each album to actually have something to say.
Yeah. And I also don't want to say too much too fast because then, you know, you dilute your musical message, so to speak. Like you can't just like go and just, you know, be firing on all cylinders at the time. People will get deaf to it. Mm-hmm. You know, you kind of have to, there has to be this like, this longing, you know, it can't be too long. They'll forget about you, but it can't be too short. Otherwise they'll be like, this is too much. We heard this already, you know? So it's like, and it also has to remain personally fulfilling too, you know? It's not just about the listener. It's about the work that you put into it to make yourself musically happy. Yeah. So it's like this fine balancing act that's pretty difficult to sustain. And I agree with you. The album a year thing, like thinking back on that, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like that, it doesn't work like that, you know?
Well, I think it's part of being younger and being a kid. And back then, at least, I mean, if you're buying a pop record or something like that, yeah, in that machine, they squeeze the juice as much as they can before someone burns out.
Yeah.
And that's great for the audience, for the consumer. That's terrible for the musician.
Yeah. And it's also, there is a very, the formula hasn't changed that much, you know? No. So you're kind of like you're exploring all of these like permutations of this very similar formula, and picturing myself living in that world sounds like hell. And I don't want to put anyone down that enjoys doing that, but to me that sounds scary, and I feel like I would just be so burnt out on that, you know, because there's no room to see what's inside you. You know, it's just like a mile a minute.
It's interesting. And the flip side of that is, and I've been in and out of the pop world in, you know, different spheres here and there, but one of my close friends here, he, shout out to Mark Evans, who lives down the street from me. He does writing sessions, pop sessions every day. I mean, if he actually tried, and he's a producer. I mean, he'll write top line and stuff like that, but you know, he's collaborating usually with songwriters. If they wanted to, they could do a song a day, like no problem, which is in like the sheer amount of output. And that's really like the songwriting game, at least here in LA, but certainly in other songwriting towns like New York and Nashville. I mean, you go in and you write quick, and your first thought is the right thought, and you just go.
Yeah.
Because it's all about volume.
And to me, like, I couldn't live in that. I couldn't exist in that world. But you mentioned top line, like writing to top lines. That is something that really fascinates me. Yeah. Because if you have like a really good singer and they know, you know, they have scales that they're strong in, and you know, you kind of know what they're capable of, I feel like that might be fun. Like just taking a singer's ability to sing in a scale and taking these top lines and then creating songs around them, because then you have kind of like the uniqueness of the singer and the way that they phrase things, and you know, they're that, you know, now that you mentioned that, like that could be fun. I think like my idea of writing in the pop world is like one guy writes everything, and that's not necessarily how it works. So
No, it's like 20
Yeah.
people write one thing.
yeah,
No, I mean, obviously, like not that extreme, but no, it's the
it always
way
funnels down to like, you know, the decision maker, but like, yeah, it's like, you know, there's a lot of people working on one thing, and I wouldn't know how to be a part of that. I wouldn't know how to, like, you know, I guess practice and networking and you know,
adapt
honing your
and
craft.
it's
Yeah,
it's a
you
different
learn.
experience because I'm so used to. I mean, I from my own work, I do everything myself, and you know, includes writing vocals and top line and doing all that. But when you're in the role of say a writing session and you've got there might be 5 people there, and one might be another producer, and there might be 3 different writers, or maybe the artist is there too, or artists, however many there are. And then it's not about you. You have to separate yourself from the project entirely, and it's about whoever you're writing for. And then you act on what your role is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's more like work in a way, but it's not any less creative, right? Well, it can be, but ideally it's not. And
It's a different type of creativity. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you touched on it where it's like you have to kind of separate yourself from the way that you like to do things
Yeah.
and try to visualize the best output for who you're working with or who is going to be the showcase, so to speak. You're kind of like building, you know, you're working with other people to kind of like build this bigger thing. So it really isn't about like what you want or what you know, it is a little bit about what you think sounds good. Like you have to advocate for your abilities and your
of course,
songwriting.
you're there.
stuff,
It's
but-
your taste.
Yeah, but it's also like you also have to have a really good musical imagination.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
because like it's like, you know, you have to see how your skills transpose to these other people's abilities. It's so scary to me. It's like advanced level stuff that I just don't quite.
you should do it.
No,
I
I'm a
mean, you'd be
control
well,
freak.
I know it's a really healthy learning experience.
Just get my ass kicked out of Hollywood.
No, not even. I mean, like, but even the records that you did with Abby and Elliot on Daily Sun. I mean, those are one-offs, but you could theoretically say, "Hey, Abby, let's do an EP together," and then, or if you want, I want to produce your EP for it. Like, that's not a Jake Bowen record. This is an Abby Press record or whatever. I mean, that I'm just thinking of opportunities that take you out of you.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to work with you. That's why I wanted to work with Elliot and Abby. You know, those were not just because I'm fans of all of you guys, but it was also an exercise to kind of push me out of my comfort zone and like try these, like, this thing that is pretty alien to me. So I stay out of the periphery vocal stuff. I even I'll have like little ideas and suggestions here or there, but I don't ever touch that stuff just because it's so alien to me. But like, yeah, like the collaborating is new to me and I want to get better at it. And maybe that's the first step into breaking into a new world.
Just do it more.
Yeah, I know we have to do it more.
Yeah, we have a lot more to do. That's a conversation for off the mic. But yes, there is a lot more to do with that. Just to wrap it up, I mean, we kind of just touched on this, but aside from collaborating, what do you want to do next?
I've just want to start working on this follow up and not not be so afraid of not. I think like the idea was after my debut in 2015, it's like, all right, well, whatever I got to do next, it has to be way better than the thing I just did. And I think I just have to trust myself more and just put more pen to paper, or audio to project window, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And just force myself to write a little bit until things start coalescing. So that's kind of what I just kind of want to work up. I just want to be consistent.
Yeah.
I think that's what I want to do next. Is just be consistent, and like what if it's stuff we work on together. Like I'm excited about that. I definitely want to work with Abby again. I want to work with Elliot again. I've been chatting with other friends who also, do this kind of stuff, and it just, I think working with you guys, working with you, working with Elliot and Abby, like really, really helped me grow. And I think whatever it is that I do next, it has to be with other people because it really, it was so valuable.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
It makes everyone better musicians.
100%.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for being on. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Everybody.
I just felt like we just had one of our normal phone conversations.
Totally. I mean, and that's the whole that's the whole idea, and we could keep going on for a long time, but for the sake of brevity. But yeah, it's for those go listen to the Daily Sun. Those of you who haven't heard it, it's a quite lovely electronic record that I had the pleasure of being a small part of. And thank
Big
you,
part,
Jake.
mixed and mastered, and collab on a track. You're too modest about it. That album sounds like the music is whatever. It sounds good because of you.
It sounds good because of you. I just took what you gave me, which were great parts, and I just made it sound how I wanted it to sound.
Can I ask you a question before we wrap up?
Totally.
What did you find the mixing process to be like? Were you surprised that like I didn't have that many notes? Like I feel like
yes and no. This was one of the easiest mix processes I've ever had, but that's because it's you. So I mean, like, I know you. I know what you want, and the kind of music you're doing is not vastly like you're not asking me to write, mix a country record. So no, I mean this was. Like it was very, very fluid because I know the style, I know you, I know what you're going for, and I also know the reason why you wanted me to do it is because you like the way my records sound.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah, definitely.
That's like the perfect synergy to make a really like smooth mix process.
Yeah, we never talked about it, so I was always curious. I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder if like this was easy for him or if this was just normal. So
no, this was a lot easier than normal. We didn't have any real disagreements about mix stuff at all, which has definitely happened before.
I went to you because I trust you, and if you were very adamant about something, or if like you made a good case for something, that's the whole reason I wanted to go to you in the first place, because you have a refined ear. So I feel like, this is just, piggybacking on what you said, but like, yeah, there was like there wasn't going to be any like massive argument about stuff. It was like, Matt knows what he's doing. That's why I'm having him do
to be honest, like the heaviest lifting was vocals. And that's usually the case. And that's also, you're newer to that too. So it's just, there was a lot of like vocal editing and cleaning up, but everyone did things on their own too. It was like, we didn't go to a studio, so that must've been but that,
tricky.
to be honest, that's not uncommon. So it wasn't like you're less of an experience dealing with vocals that made it any trickier for me to do. It's, even when I've mixed records for people who do vocals a lot, there's still a lot of cleaning up. That's the nature of vocals themselves.
Yeah.
So
it's a very imperfect instrument.
And that's why they're amazing.
Yeah.
That's why they're the most expressive instrument that we know, is because they're imperfect and they're so dynamic, and, every kind of fluctuation you have in timbre and pitch. I mean, vocals are incredible.
Yeah.
So, no, man.
There's got to be more.
There will be more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, signing out. Thanks, guys. Go listen to The Daily Sun. Jake, if you have anything you'd like to say, floor is yours.
Yeah. New Periphery is coming soon. I know that we've been super quiet. It's coming. We're working on it. Periphery 4 was the album we always wanted to do, and now we have to follow that up. So we're going to take our time with it, but it's coming. And
no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, it's all pressure. But yeah, I'm Jake Periphery on Instagram, Twitter. Don't go on Facebook. And I think that's everything. Did I cover all my bases?
I think you got him.
All right, cool.
All right, take care.
Thanks, everyone.
That was Jake Bowen, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for tuning in. Go give his record, The Daily Sun, a listen, and go check out my new single with Denise Reno, Ordinary Love, out now as well. See you next week.